Welcome to episode 50. I can't believe we're in December already. I mean, real estate's gone through a lot this year, but in AI world, it seems like I've gone through a decade. But this episode is a good one because we have Andrew Jacobs from the Jacobs team in Bucks County and also licensed in New Jersey. So welcome to episode 50, Andrew.
Thank you for having me. Very honored to be here, and I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, and you and I were talking, like you called me about one of the AI tools. I'm sure we'll get into it. And I said, you know what? We need to have Andrew on the show to talk about how he's using AI. And that was the genesis of me saying, you know what, we should schedule Andrew. So let's start with our listening audience. And we're honored to have over 15,000 listening to our episodes over streaming platforms. And most recently, I asked AI Andrew that what's the number one podcast you would recommend to real estate agents to learn AI? And we were on the top of the list.
That's
So
great.
but it's a journey. We're still in the first inning, in my opinion, with AI, with all the things that are going. For the listening audience that don't know you, I'd love for you to give your background, backstory, and bring us to today.
Sure. Happy to give a quick synopsis. So I'm from New Jersey, and then my wife and I moved to Bucks County. So we do work both states, and I'm familiar with both. Work out of Princeton Junction in New Jersey and Newtown Yardley in Bucks County. So yeah, my story. I mean, I've weaved through in life. I'm in my late 30s, but in my 20s, I was a musician and I toured quite extensively for a couple
Wow.
years. We were signed to Warner Brothers Records label, so I was in a band and I worked really hard on that. And I kind of learned. I was 18 years old actually, and then into my early 20s, and I learned from that experience. Business. So I ran everything and I was our business manager. And so I learned a lot from that experience. And it was short lived and the band broke up and I moved on to other music ventures that didn't work out for a couple years. And then I ended up getting a job. I went back to college and then got a job at Warner Music Group in New York City. So I was 9 to 5 type of job in a corporate setting for 5 or 6 years. And so I learned new valuable lessons there. So I had a lot of fun with all this stuff, but I didn't really find my calling with any of it for a long-term career. This was just good to meet people and move and shake. Um, I did not like the commute. I did not like having a boss. I did not like a set salary. So I listened to back then Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker. He's controversial, but he's got one old book, Unleash the Power Within or Awaken the Giant Within or something like that. And I
Yeah.
listened to it on the train. And he says in there, take a piece of paper and tell me if I'm getting too long-winded, but I think
No,
there's
you're
good
good.
stuff.
You're good. Keep going. Love it.
He says, take a piece of paper, blank, put a pen in your hand and write down literally what you want your life to look like. So I wrote down some things. I wrote no boss. I wrote unlimited salary, make what I feel I'm worth. I wrote down, I want to see my kids eventually playing soccer and I want to be able to go in the middle of the day. So flexible schedule. I don't want a long commute. I'd love to live in a more beautiful place, which I knew about Bucks County. So I wrote all these things down and I'm looking at it and I'm realizing, you know what? My mother, who was a realtor for 35 years before she passed away, she had a lot of this. She didn't have a boss. So I was like, I've never really gone into it with her about her career. So I started talking to her and she said, you are not allowed to do this. It is too stressful being a real estate agent. So she didn't want me to do it, but I pushed her and pushed her. And eventually, this was 9 or 10 years ago, she had to let me do it. So I got licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey at the same time. And basically what I teach people now is when I got in, you have to have some type of savings because becoming a real estate agent, an entrepreneur, really, it takes time to build. And so you
Yeah.
need some type of safety net. I had also some side income from music at that time, keeping us afloat. My wife worked. So you have to have that set up. You can't just jump into entrepreneurship because the stress will just weigh on you and clients can feel that. They need to
Yeah.
feel that you're comfortable in your own skin. And when you're nervous and you need a closing, for example, to make a commission, people are going to know that, but also you're going to make poor choices. You're going to just do anything you can to get to the closing, and that's not in the best interest of the client. I had
100%.
fantastic guidance from Berkshire Hathaway, Fox and Roach. I joined this office from the beginning, and I'm here all the way through. If I didn't join this office, I don't know that this would have happened, frankly, because I look at the other offices and they are very short-sighted. Berkshire Hathaway, it was a long game. They want to build people's careers. And so I had just amazing mentorship. And you've been part of that, Rajeev, personally, just with all your innovation. And so, slow grind. And we could talk about some of the things I did.
Yeah.
And now we just won Bucks Happening, Best Real Estate Team 2022, 2024, top 1% of the country with Berkshire Hathaway. So it's very exciting. And now I have a coordinator, 2 team members. So really built something beautiful here. But every year I start over, and try to think.
Yeah,
but last
sure.
thing I want to say on this is real estate is the best career in the world, being a real estate agent. I don't care what anybody says. I'll put it up against any career because of all the flexibility that I talked about.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's entrepreneurial, but there's a structure as well. You're in an office with a company. So that hybrid I have not really found, and I find it to be fantastic because I'm an entrepreneur, but also with so much support. There's nothing better.
100%. Well said. Well said. I love the long intro because I think it gives people a view into how you sort of grew your career. And you talked about Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, there's several great brands, but I believe that, we can put ourselves up with anyone because of what you just mentioned. And we grow careers. And I have a saying, this is where legends are made. And you are on your way, well on your way with all the work you're doing. So let's dig into it, right? Let's dig into what was your obviously this is an AI podcast, so let's dig into what was your first aha moment with AI? Do you remember?
My first? Yes, sure. I've had multiple aha moments. My first was probably making a workout. Like I was reading articles. Okay, what should I do for a 4-day-a-week split? Upper, lower, and trying to do weightlifting and stuff. And there's just so many opinions in that world. And everyone, you could find an article and then you find another article that says the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So I think I got ChatGPT at that time and typed it in and said, make me a customized workout. And I typed a little bit about myself. Here's my height and weight. Here's my goals. And it spit out the most comprehensive workout. And as I read more about AI, I realized the insane amount of data points that it's pulling from. You're getting an amalgamation of just all the best minds in the world, potentially, all into this answer. And so now, of course, we can't just go to sleep. We have to read the answer and make sure there's nothing off in there because it is still a computer and it's only going to get better. But still, I was blown away at that moment for sure. And then more recently, another aha moment was in my personal life. And I don't know if you talk too much about personal stuff on here, but
go for it.
I've been on a journey to make sure I find meaning in this life and that I'm not just plowing through every day. I've had a daughter now. And so, and you know how that is. It really opens your eye. What are we really doing here? And there's some beautiful, old scriptures, sages, Ramana Maharshi and Advaita Vedanta and things like that I've been reading about the true self. But it's very abstract and confusing. And I wasn't raised like that. So I don't really, it's difficult to understand. And then I went on ChatGPT and I typed in my questions and I had like a half-hour conversation with ChatGPT about the meaning of life.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this to me the other day that AI is the smartest best friend you have. Right. And we're going to dig into this a little bit, with the way you're leveraging it. And I'm a big believer that if you embrace something personally, Andrew, it becomes second nature to you to embrace it professionally. Right. It's take an iPhone. If you have a phone, it's like if you don't use it personally. The skills just translate. And sometimes our aha moments were personal. Like I use Perplexity not too long ago. I don't know if you're familiar with Perplexity. It's my go-to search engine tool. You should download right after this show. Because I never go to Google anymore. And when really? I was, it's like an answer engine with links to sources. So, and it's free. You don't have to purchase it. I have the paid one, but I do other things with it. So I was nominated in a group with 3 families to come up with an agenda for travel. Imagine that, 13 people trying to put together a travel schedule. And I put a mega prompt into Perplexity and it gave me brought me to the 1 yard line. I said, we're going here. I gave it the agenda, the itinerary, the whole thing. Yeah. Imagine how long that would have taken me if I had to do it the old way or the Google way. So your point is well received. Embrace it personally, and you'll get your aha moments. And AI is a series of aha moments as you go on this journey. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
get
Again, I
to
mean, if we think about the amount of data points it's pulling from, um,
100%. Yeah.
my example is if you have, let's say, a complicated situation and you go to a therapist, or let's say you have a complicated business situation and you talk to a colleague. It's wonderful to do those things. We need human interaction, but that's one person's opinion.
Yeah.
Put that same question into ChatGPT and play with it. Learn how to prompt it. Learn how to guide it. And my God, the possibilities are endless. And again, I don't know that it's going to replace human interaction, because there's still feeling and heart, and the way that we approach things. There is a human behavior that maybe AI doesn't get. But as a tool, are you kidding me? It should be used
Yeah.
daily by everybody. It's unbelievable.
Game changer. Yeah, for sure. And your point is well taken. I don't think it'll ever replace human interaction. I think it'll give us time to have more human interactions to amplify our relationship. So
Well,
you
and
can,
real estate has been under siege for years, and you've heard, all the internet companies are popping up, and they're saying, "Hey, we don't need real estate agents. People can transact with each other. You could sell a house using technology." It's really just not the case. And when I joined real estate 9 or 10 years ago, I was reading all these articles that, oh my God, real estate agents and accountants and all these types of professions are going away because of technology. And I spoke to my mother about that, and she said it will never go away, because humans need to interact, and people cannot transact with each other directly. And if there's a technology in the middle, great, but it's never going to do what we do. There's a psychological component to this that I don't think.
100%, 100%. And to double down on what you just said, I mean, I saw a survey. If I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes, which talked about, and this is the year of AI, right? We've been on a 2-year journey with ChatGPT and technology innovation. With all the innovation, I think consumers are asked, would you use an agent? Again, that number is creeping up and not down, right? It was at 87%. I saw this survey that said it said closer to 90% now. So I think point well taken. And so let's get to specific things you use AI for regularly, like daily, weekly, and in your business that have really sort of scaled your business that otherwise would be hard to scale. What are some things you love doing with AI?
Oh, sure. So, for example, part of my job is going on listing appointments and meeting with a seller who wants to talk about everything. And those appointments can be an hour, hour and a half. I go very, very prepared, and I do a lot of work going into it to try and teach them about the market, price their house properly, educate them on the process. So it does feel natural, but it sure is a lot of legwork each time. And but I need to do it, because then I'm educated and I can really speak off the cuff and be able to answer objections or questions very quickly. Where AI has come into that, though, is, suppose I'm going on a unique listing. I had one recently. It was a 15-acre property, very, very different than what I would normally do. And I needed to come up with something a little special and just a little different than I would my normal process, because there's farmland, and so I have to figure out how to market that. So I used ChatGPT and I spoke with it and had a conversation with it, and we came up with this amazing, unique marketing plan, things I never would have thought of. And I went into this appointment I was a rock star. I mean, I had it, and they were blown away, and I think they may have interviewed a couple of agents. I ended up getting it, but I think it's because AI helped me get there. So just putting in and asking it for a marketing plan is really great. Also, just even I use it personally, where if I need to speak to a client and it's a complicated situation, I might write in there, "Hey, can you give me 3 different approaches to speak to this client?" Because we're in pretty tough situations sometimes, and you need to help guide people through really emotional situations. And so those are a couple of things I use it for. Pretty daily or weekly, sure.
Yeah. So we recently had, interesting you mentioned that the way you felt like a rock star because of ChatGPT's information that you sort of processed. We had Lori McGuire from Ebby Halliday Companies in Texas recently on a pod, and she mentioned that they got this builder that was questioning the value of an agent, and they wanted to kind of, gut it a lot and kind of build a $5 million property or whatever. And she just never was operating in that space with a builder, and she used ChatGPT to win the business because it came up with 10 things. So to your point, I mean, I think if you embrace it, you'll have those moments and you'll tap into the smartest best friend you have more often.
Mhm. That's it.
So, right? I mean,
Well,
great,
yeah, and if you
great,
think
great point.
about and if you think about business, CEOs or leaders of companies, et cetera, the best of them always say, surround yourself with people smarter than you. Well, we don't always have that opportunity. We're kind of at a lower level type of, volume. So, yeah, I mean, this is surrounding yourself with some of the best information and even think about, dictating, instead of sitting there and writing and typing and spending so much time, I can just just put the speaker thing on
Yeah.
and just speak to what I need. And I might even say, hey, help me write a listing description for a new property coming up. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, because I can speak so much quicker and I can get better thoughts out than typing or writing. And then it just generates. And you know what? I don't even think what we're talking about today is really cool, but think about 5 years from now or 10 years from now. It's really, if you're not jumping
Unfathomable.
in now, yes. And I think this podcast is really valuable because if we're not jumping in now and embracing this, you're gonna you're not gonna be caught up, and this thing is gonna move so much faster than you can even imagine. I mean, think about there's a AI tool called Suno, Suno.
Yeah. I know, so no.
Suno
Yeah.
AI. You type in what kind of song you want it to write you, and it writes literally a radio quality song for you. And it's full instruments, voices. It's unbelievable. And I showed it to a friend, and he was blown away. But he also said that's not crazy. He said in 5 years, I mean, what is going to happen? They're going to make full video, music videos, and I mean, so
Yeah.
even with real estate photography, we pay these companies a lot to do virtual staging and things like that. But that's happening now in AI.
Yeah. It's happening
So,
now. And one of the
so a
five,
money saver. How about a money saver? I mean, even like I said, the CEO who has the assistant for 50,000, 60,000 a year that they dictate to, and I mean, a lot of this stuff is being automated. So, I mean, I hate to
100%.
put people out of business, and again, I do think there's a human element that we need, but how much more efficient can we be embracing these tools? And I think
And I
that's
think
your whole approach, right? You're not saying we should be replaced. You're saying this is a tool to enhance efficiency, right? I mean, that's my view.
100%. I mean, I think will AI change people's jobs? 110%. And I think it'll amplify your human potential if you embrace it. You'll be more valuable, you'll be more productive, and it will give you your time back. I mean, you can spend time with your little one, Andrew, because AI is helping you with all of this stuff. And to your point, though, I mean, I think there's a journey. I've always been talking in my AI present keynotes that I do is there will be a separation season with AI. There will be agents that are skilled with AI, like you're on that journey, and most of our guests are on that journey. And some just haven't gotten in. I recently did a webinar for BHHS with Gino Buffari, and I did a poll at the start. How many of you use it daily, like weekly, never used it? And I can't imagine not using it multiple times a day now. Like, I just can't live without it. And I think there is a separation. There was I think 12% multiple times a day. We're at 12%. And then the other poll we did was how many of you pay for an AI tool like ChatGPT? 15% were paying, which means the others, I mean, you need to start with the free one. I'm a big believer. Start with the free, learn the limitations. You'll push its limits and say, you know what, I need the paid. And that's when you get into the custom GPTs. To your point, Andrew, I mean, we built custom GPTs for listing descriptions that understands fair housing. It's in the GPT store for ChatGPT. And for you, like a client meeting, you could build, because you have the paid one, you could build a client meeting GPT that knows that use case, and it's GPT powering that. So you can just put in some basic.
Yeah, no, I really like
right?
what you're saying. I think, I think people, when you're embracing this for business or personal, read some books. I've read a couple books about prompts. It's very important because, even before you start your conversation with the AI tool, you can tell it, what kind of hat you want it to wear, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what you need to, and then what type of language they should come out. Like, I was writing a post for a younger audience on something, and I told it to speak with Gen Z vernacular. And so it did, and it sounded like, I showed it to my teenage cousin, and it sounded like the way they talk. So if you can, I think that's the thing. The people who maybe aren't that impressed with it or think it's just too bland, You really have to go in there and tell it who you want it to be, and then prompt it correctly. And then when it answers you, but it's not completely right, say, please try again. And here's the things I want you to change. And then I think the other problem, though, we might be running into is people just copy and paste it, and there it goes in the ether. You have to read it because, again, it's a computer and it doesn't exactly know, what you're trying to do. So I think the interaction with it is amazing. And here's a quick fun tip that I learned on TikTok is everybody should try this. If you've been using ChatGPT for some while, ask ChatGPT a question. I hope I say it right, but basically you're going to say to ChatGPT, you've been talking with me for a while. Tell me what I may not know about myself. I want you to psychoanalyze me. And I did it, and it spit out this unbelievable synopsis of who I am as a person. It says, I'm curious, I'm driven. Sometimes I have anxiety. Sometimes I worry. And it talked about me because of all the prompts I've been doing for so long. It knows me maybe deeper than my closest friends. And so what a cool psychoanalysis. But I kind of read it and I said, wow, I could get stronger in this area. And you know what? I do overthink these certain topics. It was unbelievable. Everybody should
That's a cool story. I know. You told me that
after this.
I will for sure. So as you were talking through learning prompting, one of the things we've discussed early on in our episodes, and it's also in our playbook at our podcast site called realestateaiflash.com. The playbook talks about 4 Ps: priming, prompting, polishing before you publish. 4 Ps. And the prime piece is the biggest piece, which is give it a role, input, context, steps, and expectations. So 4P and rise everything you do, and you'll be more skilled with AI. And to your point, though, now I've used it for 2 years, Andrew, and this is when I see content on social media, I know it's AI because people haven't done enough skill with it, and they're just lifting and posting. And if you don't want to be part of AI mediocrity, you need to get skilled with AI so people don't know it's AI, and that's how you get skilled with it. So as we wind down the pod, this has been fun. I could talk to you all day, Andrew. Just so you know, talk to you all day.
Well, before we wind down, I want to talk about Notebook LM. If you give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, go for it.
Notebook LM. Everybody needs to go on Notebook LM today. You upload a PDF or multiple PDFs. It analyzes it. It summarizes it for you, and it can be hundreds of pages of PDF. Doctor students and medical students are using this to summarize complex topics. And then there's a feature called that you've talked about with your audience, podcast generator, and it generates a 10 to 15 minute podcast conversation between a male and a female, and they're talking about the material in a digestible way that it is so easy to learn. So I uploaded a couple of complicated contracts from Pennsylvania, real estate contracts, and uploaded it. And I listened to the podcast, and the podcast, they had a great time talking about this stuff. And it gave me ways to talk to clients that were much more down to earth, less legalese, just easy to understand. So Notebook LM, really that's another mind-blowing tool.
100%. It's fast become my go-to tool for internal research and creating things. And we're using it at our company for certain things as well. So it's a great, great tool. Yep. And it's been around for a year. What's crazy is it's been around for a year. The podcast feature tipped the lid off. That's what they introduced recently, and it just went off the rails. And it's a great way to learn concepts, complex topics, etc. Yep. And we'll include the link to the show notes. If you have a Google account, you have it. You just got to go use it. So in closing, there's 2 questions I love to ask my guests. You've been in business, real estate for 9 years, run a successful team. If you were starting your younger self, starting in business today, what would be the one piece of advice that our listening audience can embrace?
The one piece of advice is, I'm going to sound like a company guy, but surround yourself with the right people. I got lucky that I did, right? But I really see peers that maybe haven't made it or have dropped out or have had struggles in their early years. I skipped a lot of that because I interviewed with a few companies, and you have to trust your gut. You have to think long term. And, that's the biggest advice that I would have given my younger self. And again, I got lucky because I didn't have that advice. I just did it. But I find that to be I'm just lucky that happened. But that's the advice. So I'm not necessarily giving my younger self advice that I should have done something different. I'm just trying to highlight I think one of the most important factors to me being able to build a career here was surrounding myself with the right people, with really good mentors, with a company with a passion and a mission, and doing this the right way, putting the client first. Just in our industry in real estate, so many companies and thought leaders and whatever, the client's not first. It's not. It's all about me, me, me. And sure, you can generate numbers. There's books out there that teach you how to generate numbers. Call 100 people, you'll get 2 clients. That's garbage. And this is about relationships and building lifetime fans. So join the right company. Yeah, and surround yourself with really good mentors.
That's great advice. So last question I have is, I know we're on a podcast, but people are influenced by books and or podcasts. Is there one book or podcast that has been instrumental in shaping who you are, Andrew?
Definitely. So I want to throw 2 out there. One is, it's a book. It's an older book called Sell with Soul. And yeah, it's written by this agent from Colorado. She's no longer an agent. And it was the first book I read on real estate. And again, so lucky I grabbed that book instead of some of these millionaire type of, make your numbers big type of books. This book's called Sell with Soul, and it taught you how to really get into the nitty gritty of the transactions and make relationships with your client, how to solve problems. I think she has a saying, if it feels icky, don't do it. And when I was early on, oh my God, there's so many icky things you could do in a sales job, cold calling, harassing people, whatever the case, to try and get clients. And so I learned that early from her. And I just always said that to myself. If I'm doing something and it doesn't feel right, or I don't want to get out of bed to do it, then it's not the right thing to do. And it really is kind of that simple. When you go throughout your day, if something feels icky, you need to change course. And it's just built a really good career for me, where I really love our clients. They love us, and we have a great time because I think we're doing everything that feels good. It feels natural.
It shows, Andrew. It shows. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, thank you. The last thing is just more recently with the NAR settlement and all that, there's a podcast. They have videos called BAM, B-A-M. And this guy, he's been going through the changes throughout the country. So you're getting to see contracts from California, and you're getting to see what real estate agents are doing in different areas. And he's really on the forefront, I find. So I just think if you want to be so great at this, you have to educate yourself and you have to be immersed in it. And so that's just one way that I've been able to kind of stay in the know. But anyway, yeah, that first book, though, Sell with Soul, again, it's older. Some of it's outdated on how things work, but just the message, if it feels icky, don't do it.
Yeah, and the principles are timeless. I mean, you've built a business that I feel like you sell with soul. I mean, you could have written that book literally for real estate, because you've embraced those principles. So I appreciate you jumping on the podcast.
I'm working on something. Thank you. I'm working on something in that respect about being authentic. The authentic agent. I'm thinking a title like "No More Scripts" or something like that, because I'm not a script guy. I'm not a script guy.
Yeah, you're a soul guy. But appreciate you, Andrew. Thanks for jumping on our episode 50. It's always fun catching up with you, and continued success.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here, and I hope this was helpful.